Hello folks, this is Aitan Ajha from inspiredrise.com and today we are going to talk about the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra smartphone. And today we are going to tell you all about it after a really long term of usage. So guys, let's begin. So guys, inside the box for this smartphone there's a lot of stuff, but let's just skip it for today as there's too much to discuss already and there are a number of unboxing videos everywhere. So my initial impressions were that a phone like this is really hard to miss. You can't use this phone without putting in some effort, and if you are a compact phone lover like me, you will never opt for this phone. It's so top heavy. At 234 grams without a protective cover, it's quite heavy already, and if you get a tempered glass plus a hard case cover, things will get even heavier. Let's talk about the build and design. At its thinnest point, it's 8.4 millimeters thin, but the camera bump is so huge that you can hang this phone on an edge using it. It has a beautiful shiny ceramic back, aluminum frame and Corning Gorilla Glass Victus on the front, which is I guess the best display protection available right now. It's an IP68 dust and water resistant smartphone, and that's a great thing to see on a Xiaomi smartphone, as Xiaomi often skips on things like IP rating, etc. The smartphone is huge and the camera bump is kind of needed as it houses one of the biggest camera sensors on a smartphone ever. There's also a 1.1 inch OLED display on the camera bump, and it can be used as a viewfinder while clicking pictures to show time and date and other useful stuff as well. It packs a 5000 mAh battery, and that explains the overall weight for the smartphone, but it's good to have such battery size on a modern flagship. The camera bump protrudes out by 3.7 millimeters and the back's glossy, so it does get fingerprints, but because we had the bright white color, so smudges weren't that visible. The sides of this phone curve very slightly, but if you're a fan of symmetrical design, then the sides with the black borders and the thickness of that black region, you will see that the corners on this phone stand out quite a lot. If you take a closer look, there's also an optical in-display fingerprint scanner which was fast and reliable. There's one design detail that I appreciate. The aluminum frame on the sides is considerably thicker at the corners, and most probably that's for impact protection. At the bottom there's the USB Type-C port, there's a dual SIM tray slot, primary microphone, and the bottom is flat, which looks really good. The primary speaker grill at the bottom looks like an audio wave, and that's a great attention to detail. At the top there's the IR emitter, which I really love and I use them a lot, and there's opening for the secondary speaker with the Harman Kardon logo, which shows that Xiaomi is serious about audio on the smartphone. This phone is so big that even while using it casually, you have to be extra cautious about not dropping it, and weight distribution in general is really painful here. There's a ceramic white and cosmic black color variant for the smartphone, and I would always suggest you to go for the white color one. The haptic feedback on this smartphone was also pretty good. And one final piece of advice for you, that this is a very slippery and top heavy smartphone, so your hands might hurt after using it for really long duration of time. The 6.81 inch AMOLED display on this one has a lot going on for it. It has a 3200 by 1440 pixel resolution, extraordinary pixel density of 515 ppi, and you get a standard 60Hz refresh rate mode or the high 120Hz dynamic refresh rate, which cycles between 30, 60, 90 or 120Hz depending upon the content being displayed. The 480Hz touch sampling rate on this phone is just extraordinary, and whenever you are touching the display, it stays at 120Hz, and when watching videos or other stuff, it often goes down to 60Hz, but this switching is not user noticeable, so the phone feels really smooth. And high refresh rate support for games is not really well implemented as of yet. Many games had trouble utilizing the 120Hz refresh rate mode. The display not only supports HDR10+, but Dolby Vision as well, like the top of the line iPhones. Widevine L1 is supported on the smartphone, and you can watch all of your content in HDR on Amazon, Netflix and YouTube. And because this is a 10-bit display, you'll get amazing colors. Among the current top of flagships, only the S21 Ultra 5G has a brighter display than this smartphone. Though it can handle all varieties of colors, but whites are bluish on this one straight out of the box. Fiddling a little bit with the settings will give you the perfect whites you always hoped for. There are auto, saturated and original color modes. Original gets you a perfect sRGB implementation, while the auto gives you a DCI P3 color space. The display on the rear has its own themes, but it's not always on, but you can wake it up with a double tap. It can show time and notifications, and even the main display can tell you about notifications with breathing light alerts. The in-display fingerprint sensor was fast and accurate, and the good thing about it was that it does not blind you at night, and the display is gently curved on the sides, and it aids in the overall usage. Now let's talk about the specifications and performance. On the inside there's the Snapdragon 888 chipset, and it's based on a 5nm process. You get 256 or 512 gigabytes of storage based on UFS 3.1 and options for 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM. Compared to the other Snapdragon 888 smartphones, this one is tuned slightly lower, which reflected in most of the benchmarks. But it's sad to say that this phone was heating up when used heavily. Thermal throttling or decreased performance wasn't there in general, but this phone did heat up for sure. And even while using the camera application, I could see that performance in general was snappy, and there was some weird UI bugs sometimes. The same processor is faster inside something like maybe the ROG Phone 5, but that's a completely different comparison for another day. And there's no micro SD card expansion available on this smartphone, so that's also one another concerning point. If we talk about the MIUI experience, the latest MIUI version works fine, but there are still some bloatware applications pre-installed here. I did not see any ad notifications here, but some of the Xiaomi phones are notorious for doing that, and after the latest MIUI updates, things have become slightly better than before. If we talk about gaming, it can handle almost any game with ease, and even heavy duty games like Genshin Impact run fine. But if you game at highest possible settings, then heating up of the phone and minor thermal throttling are visible. MIUI packs in gaming tools to enhance your gaming experience. The 480Hz touch sampling rate makes sure that the gaming is super responsive, but a lot of games haven't been whitelisted yet, so even with 120Hz refresh rate, they are still stuck at 60Hz refresh rate, despite the fact that the panel is a 120Hz panel. But overall, in general, as you can see from the footage, the overall gaming experience was pretty good for your day-to-day normal gaming needs. But mind the fact that the smartphone will get really hot while playing for extended durations of time, so that's something that you should never forget. And let's talk about connectivity. It's a 5G smartphone. It does support Wi-Fi 6E, dual band Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 5.2, low energy Bluetooth. There's aptX HD audio support here, NFC support, USB OTG support. It has an infrared port as well, which I believe every brand should provide in their smartphones. The universal remote feature is seriously highly underrated, and I use it a lot. It supports very high quality GPS and has support for multiple GPS protocols as well. But sadly, there's no FM radio support, but it does support fast wireless charging up to 67 watts and reverse wireless charging up to 10 watts. The sad thing here is that USB connectivity here is a really pain point, despite the fact that this is a flagship smartphone. It supports only up to USB 2.0 speeds on its Type-C port, and I think MHL won't work with this smartphone, which means that you can't directly connect it via USB to show the display on a big TV screen. It does have all of the sensors you might need for a great experience, and it supports 13 5G bands, and both of the SIM tray slot here, both of the SIM slots, they support 5G. Talking about the battery, it has a 5000 mAh battery using lithium polymer tech. It does support fast wired as well as wireless charging up to 67 watts. Quick Charge 4 Plus is supported here with Power Delivery 3.0. Battery backup wasn't anywhere as good as something like the S21 Ultra 5G. Good news is that the charging speed is so good that you can charge it from 0 to 100% in just under 40 minutes. Up to 6 hours or 6.5 hours of screen on time was possible with above average usage, but I feel that both the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the S21 Ultra 5G have a better battery backup than this smartphone. Let's talk about the sound on this one. It has stereo speaker setup, and with the Harman Kardon, the audio was quite good, but the top speaker unit sometimes leaks a little bit of audio while you are on calls, so that's something which can be a major privacy issue sometimes. But overall, the sound experience was pretty good, and the audio was loud with enough bass. The calling quality and mic quality is definitely good, but audio does leak a little, as I said before. And there's no 3.5mm jack here, but there's support for high resolution 24-bit 192 kHz audio, and a 3.5mm to USB-C adapter is included in the box for the smartphone, so things aren't that dismal for music lovers. So one more thing that I would like to point out is the fact that sadly the dialer used here is not the MIUI dialer but the Google dialer, so no no discrete call recordings are possible for you. And now let's talk about the camera on this device. The main sensor is one of the most advanced imaging systems that I have seen till date. It has a 50 megapixel Samsung GN2 sensor, the biggest on any phone till date, and 1.4 micrometer individual pixel size for all of the pixels in the 50 megapixel one. And there is a quad bare setup here, so it does down sample it 4:1, so you get final 2.8 micrometer pixels, and the resulting images are 12.5 megapixel. It has a bi-directional dual pixel autofocus system, 8 element lens, and f1.95 aperture. It does have OIS as well, so that's particularly great. There's a 48 megapixel IMX586 sensor for telephoto, and the same sensor for ultra wide as well. You get up to 5x optical zoom, and anything beyond 10x is not sharp or usable at all. The 128-degree field of view on the ultra wide camera is so great that even with distortion correction, things look a little bit skewed because of the wide field of view. The display at the back is only limited for taking pictures. If it was usable as a video recording display, or maybe even for the portrait mode, things could have been a lot better. Maybe a software update can make this display more useful in the near future. The selfie camera on the front is with a 20 megapixel Samsung sensor, and it gives 20 megapixel pictures, but there is no autofocus for selfies. I was sad at the state of color and HDR and even the video quality for the selfie camera. But normally in the camera app, as you could see before, you can zoom up to starting from 5x to up to 120x, which I felt was barely usable at all. The pro mode on this smartphone is really fleshed out, and long exposure modes are also available. Night mode is also present for all of these three sensors, and overall image quality was good, but I personally prefer a little bit more contrast in my images, but Xiaomi has gone for a slightly neutral and realistic color look on the camera for this one, which I really respect. And the cameras for this one, I could see that the noise levels are lowest for any smartphone camera. The primary, ultra wide and telephoto sensors are so good that the selfie camera pales in front of it, and I would rather suggest you to use the primary camera and the mini display at the back for taking selfies. There's one issue though, the fact that the ultra wide has quite a lot of barrel distortion. 8K 24 FPS videos were possible here. Let's take a closer look at a video sample. Video from the front camera was okay at best. As you can see, the dynamic range also is so limited that it overexposes as soon as some bright white light come into the picture in the frame. OIS is not present on the front camera, but the EIS does a good job. When you zoom in up to 120x, the images come out barely usable, so that's something that you should keep in mind, is not really a top selling point for the smartphone. And sometimes in extreme daylight, the shots were weirdly overexposed, and the processing software could definitely use some updates, but I feel that the natural color science on this one is one of the best that I've seen till date. And as can be seen in the footage here, the front camera video quality pales in front of the back camera video quality, and the 8K 24 FPS video that comes from the back camera is pretty much stabilized, and I felt that 4K video recording from all of the sensors was particularly good. So this is a 8K sample as can be seen here, and video quality is definitely class leading here. Colors were okay at best. I feel that it's very close to the 1-inch sensor look on a lot of modern Sony cameras, which you can buy for a lot of money. But as you can see here, the focusing does have issues in the 8K mode, so that's a major glaring point which needs fixing via software updates. And the smartphone does get really heated up when you are using the camera application, and I was outdoors and it was barely usable at all. So that's also something that you should keep in mind while using the smartphone for extended durations of time while you're outside shooting stuff. And now let's take a closer look at an audio sample.
इफ़ यू आर गोइंग टू व्लॉग फ्रॉम द स्मार्टफोन, अगर आप इस स्मार्टफोन से व्लॉग करना चाहते हैं तो ऐसा इसमें एकदम ज़बरदस्त लेवल का स्टेबलाइजेशन मिलेगा. फ्रेम उतना वाइड नहीं है एंड लेकिन स्टेबलाइजेशन बहुत गज़ब है. और ऑडियो ऐसा है जैसा आप सुन सकते हैं. ऑडियो इज़ लाइक हाउ it's audible right now, but you can hear right now this is what the final audio is going to be like.
At around 70,000 rupees for the Indian pricing, this phone stands firmly against the OnePlus 9 Pro, Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra and a few other flagship smartphones. It's undoubtedly the best camera smartphone in terms of hardware out there. The only deal breakers for me would be the humongous size and the weight along with the heating issues for the smartphone. Otherwise, it's definitely one of the best Android smartphones around that money can buy for you. But you can always get an iPhone if you are really willing to spend that much money. As I talked about MIUI earlier, it still does need a little bit of refinement here, and despite being a flagship, there are some issues here that need to be dealt with. And it's not an easy phone to buy. Even if you have a lot of money, it's like Xiaomi themselves don't want to sell this one a lot. So availability is a big issue even in India and a lot of other places. So guys, this was it for this video. In case you like this one, don't forget to smash the thumbs up button and do subscribe to Inspire to Rise for more awesome tech videos like this one. And guys, no matter what you do, stay inspired to rise.